زفت جروح الأماني والعرس دمعة وخضار. هذا عمه حسين زفافه وابوه الحسن غار. زفت جروح الأماني والعرس دمعة وخضار. هذا عمه حسين زفافه وابوه الحسن غار. ودع عمه وزينب وامه طفت شموع الأماني بين السيوف. ذرفت عينه شافت سكينه وعينها تودع قمر للموت مزفوف. بارك الزفة يا سكنة لحظة والجاسم صريح. تنطفي شموع الهواشم شمعتي الطفل الرضيع. زفت جروح الأماني والعرس دمعة وخضار. هذا عمه حسين زفافه وابوه الحسن غار. هلهلت زينب وشافته مخضر. حنته دمع ودمه والريس جسام. حسرته بنفسه ينذبح حرسه. عنت بحوفة عروسه سيوف ظلام. بارك الزفة يا رملة هالعريس والله عجيب. كفكفي دموع الثكالة لا يعاين هالغريب. زفت جروح الأماني والعرس دمعة وخضار. هذا عمه حسين زفافه وابوه الحسن غار. شفرتي الصارم زفتي الجاسم. شمس هاشم أذنت بالطفل الغرور. حنتي دمومه وشتي الحومه. فصلت ثوب العرس من دم القلوب. بارك الزفة يا زينب هالعرس بسمة جراح. تسمتي بطف المعالي نزفتي بروس الرمال. زفت جروح الأماني والعرس دمعة وخضار. هذا عمه حسين زفافه وابوه الحسن غار.
حياتنا يا حسين مماتنا يا حسين عزاؤنا يا حسين. لم نكن نبكي على طفل رضيع بل طفولات مدى الدنيا.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أرسلنا نوحا إلى قومه أن أنذر قومك من قبل أن يأتيهم عذاب أليم. قال يا قوم إني لكم نذير مبين أن اعبدوا الله واتقوه وأطيعون يغفر لكم من ذنوبكم ويؤخركم إلى أجل مسمى إن أجل الله إذا جاء لا يؤخر لو كنتم تعلمون قال رب إني دعوت قومي ليلا ونهارا فلم يزدهم دعائي إلا فرارا وإني كلما دعوتهم لتغفر لهم جعلوا أصابعهم في آذانهم واستغشوا ثيابهم وأصروا واستكبروا استكبارا ثم إني دعوتهم جهارا ثم إني أعلنت لهم وأسررت لهم إسرارا فقلت استغفروا ربكم إنه كان غفارا يرسل السماء عليكم مدرارا ويمددكم بأموال وبنين ويجعل لكم جنات ويجعل لكم أنهارا ما لكم لا ترجون لله وقارا وقد خلقكم أطوارا ألم تروا كيف خلق الله 7 سماوات طباقا وجعل القمر فيهن نورا وجعل الشمس سراجا والله أنبتكم من الأرض نباتا ثم يعيدكم فيها ويخرجكم إخراجا والله جعل لكم الأرض بساطا لتسلكوا منها سبلا فجاجا قال نوح رب إنهم عصوني واتبعوا من لم يزده ماله وولده إلا خسارا ومكروا مكرا كبارا وقالوا لا تذرن آلهتكم ولا تذرن ودا ولا سواعا ولا يغوث ويعوق ونصرا وقد أضلوا كثيرا ولا تزد الظالمين إلا ضلالا مما خطيئاتهم أغرقوا فأدخلوا نارا فلم يجدوا لهم من دون الله أنصارا وقال نوح رب لا تذر على الأرض من الكافرين ديارا إنك إن تذرهم يضلوا عبادك ولا يلدوا إلا فاجرا كفارا رب اغفر لي ولوالدي ولمن دخل بيتي مؤمنا وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات ولا تزد الظالمين إلا تبارا صدق الله العلي العظيم وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين.
मौला की सदा गूंजी ऐ मेरे जवां कासिम मौला की सदा गूंजी ऐ मेरे जवां कासिम मिलता ही नहीं तेरे मिलता ही नहीं तेरे लाशे का पता कासिम مولا کی صدا گونجی اے میرے جواں قاسم کم سن ہے مگر شیروں جیسا ہے جگر اس کا سردار جوانان جنت ہے پدر اس کا کیسے ہو بھلا تیرے کیسے ہو بھلا تیرے اوصاف بیاں قاسم مولا کی صدا گونجی اے میرے جواں قاسم سینے سے لگاتے ہیں روتے ہوئے کہتے ہیں اے لال میرے قاسم رخصت تمہیں کرتے ہیں ڈھونڈوں گا بھلا تم کو ڈھونڈوں گا بھلا تم کو اب جا کے کہاں قاسم مولا کی صدا گونجی اے میرے جواں قاسم میدان میں آتے ہی آدھا کو پکارا ہے لیلا نے حسن کا ہوں حیدر میرا دادا ہے عباس جری کی ہوں عباس جری کی ہوں میں روح روا قاسم مولا کی صدا گونجی اے میرے جواں قاسم رخصت ہوئے مادر سے بہنوں سے دعائیں لی اس چاند سے چہرے کی زینب نے بلائیں لی کھو جاؤ گے نظروں سے ہو جاؤ گے نظروں سے اب تم بھی نہا قاسم مولا کی صدا گونجی اے میرے جواں قاسم رحم اللہ من قرأ الفاتحہ
أبا عبد الله يا حسين يا أبا عبد الله يا حسين يا أبا عبد الله يا حسين
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم اخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمنا بنور اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا من خزائن علومك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا. My brothers and my sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the narrations of the Ahlul Bayt, we are told that we move through states of iqbal and idbar. Iqbal means going forward when you accept qubul, and idbar means going backwards. They reference this in terms of the heart. The heart is retreating in idbar or moving forward in iqbal. Depending on which state the heart is in, the Imams advise that you act differently. If you are in a state of iqbal, if you're in a state of moving forward, then you should do more a'mal. Today I'm feeling spiritual, more spiritual than usual. Then let me read more dua. Let me read another page of Qur'an. Let me do something that I don't usually do in my normal routine because I have the ability right now, that extra spiritual energy that I don't usually have. So we use it, we take advantage of that. Maybe I seek knowledge, maybe I read, maybe I perform a service for someone. But when I am in the state of idbar, the Imams say, stop, don't do anything extra. If it is part of your routine to do a'mal and to do many pages of Qur'an a day and perform the night prayer and everything else, don't do that right now. Focus only on your wajib. Focus only on your salat, your wajib, and stop right there because you might begin to break what is left of your heart. You might be in that state for a week and then you come out of it. That's okay. The Ahlul Bayt and the ethos of Islam understands that the heart becomes tired and it needs recreation sometimes. We can't be expected to always be on, always be on. It's difficult for the heart to be connected at all times. And what happens to someone whose whole life centers around Islam is when they don't feel connected, they begin to panic or they begin to think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not happy with them. Whereas we're not looking at the feeling. And I've said this many times before, the feeling is all well and good and Allah can give us the feeling as a gift to us, as a blessing to us. But the feeling does not determine if we are on the right path or not. Our logic and the actions that we commit determine that. The heart, though, is not always in sync. So sometimes it needs to have that break. And that's not a bad thing. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides us with opportunities to bring that heart out of idbar. So there are certain places in the world which have some sort of energy to them. They are sacred. They are sacred because people interact with them in that sacred way. And Allah has assigned sanctity to them. But if someone does not believe in that sanctity and does not pay attention to it, they won't be affected by it. But if there is truly sanctity in this place, and a person believes in that sanctity and interacts with the place as if it is sacred, then that begins to affect their heart. That's why nature, for example, is one such place, a place of life, greenery and trees and birds and flowers. It's supposed to revive the heart. It's supposed to bring something of that spiritual energy because there is sacred life there. However, if you do not see that sacred life there, it won't affect you in that way to revive your heart. You still feel something, but you're not interacting with it in that way which is in sync with its reality. How so then when it comes to places like Najaf or like Karbala? When you go to a place like Najaf, there is a sanctity to this place. This place is sacred. And if you are interacting with this place in that way, then you are in sync with its reality because the Imam al-Ma'soom is buried in this land, then that may provide some restoration to your heart. This is also true when it comes to time. So we have place and then we have time. Time is also given sanctity. We have certain days which are more honorable and prestigious than other days. Friday is more prestigious than Wednesday. Thursday night is more prestigious than Monday night. Arafah is more prestigious than a random day. Eid is more prestigious. Laylatul Qadr is known as the most sacred of times. And if you interact with it as the night that the Qur'an descended, because that is in sync with its reality, then we say that this person has been chosen on this night, inna anzalnahu fi laylatul qadr, and you'll finally understand what that means, that something has descended, Allah has brought something forth on this night. Like, every year we are blessed with Shahr Ramadan, and every year we commemorate the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam, the battle of Karbala, and all its principles and all its values. And this is a very sacred time. Now, some people are living their lives, most of the world right now, billions of people, oblivious to the fact that this is a sacred time. There is sanctity to these days and these nights, especially on the 10th. There's a reality that one can choose not to be in sync with and not to act in accordance with, but does not take away from its sanctity. Though, if someone was to act in sync with this time and in accordance with it, and whether they are to read Qur'an or recite Ziyarat, these are all recommended actions. However, what we know is, if one is to shed a tear for Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam, just one tear, then we cannot even fathom the abundance of blessing that we are to receive in the next world. If this tear is shed in a sacred time of Muharram, so now this action, which is always recommended in a time when it is the most highly recommended, then you are completely in sync with time. And if you are in a place, the majalis that you interact in, right now there might be 10, 20, 30 of you in the same room, and all of you may cry at the same time for the same cause, this creates a sacred atmosphere, a sacred place, a sacred feeling. Now you're interacting with the world in real time and real place. You're gaining meaning from the world in this way. This meaning comes into your heart. That tear shed on this night comes into your heart, brings you out of that state of idbar, brings you forward towards not only iqbal, but a permanent sort of growing. So even though sometimes you might move backwards, if you zoom out, you're always moving up. You're always progressing. There's back and forth, which is normal, but overall, year by year, you are progressing. The tear for Imam al-Hussain on these nights is the tear of the revival of the heart, because you're interacting with the world and you're taking meaning from the world in its sanctity, in a sacred time and sacred place. Yesterday, I spoke to you about the way that doubt creeps into our hearts and begins to shake us. And this doubt is one of the main reasons we have so many problems in our own selves. Doubt in whatever it may be. Sometimes someone might doubt in religion, but sometimes one may doubt in who they are. This is different now. Doubting in religion, maybe you can solve that. You can prove God's existence. You can prove the Qur'an to be true. You can prove these things logically, but then doubting in who you are and going through an existential crisis and doubting in whatever else it may be that brings you towards that sadness. As Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says, Allahumma ja'al rahata bil yaqini wal rida. Allah has made rest, created rest in yaqeen, in certainty. Certainty brings rest. وَجَعَلَ الْحُزْنَ بِالشَّكِّ. And He has created sadness and sorrow in doubt. Now this doubt can manifest itself in several different ways. One way in which this doubt manifests itself is when you begin to doubt in the akhirah. When you doubt in the akhirah, when you begin to no longer have certainty in the world to come, that can bring that disease into your heart. Several sorts of diseases that bring you into idbar, that move you backwards. But it's a very lethal type when you doubt in the akhirah, because you no longer work towards what is coming. You no longer have that faith. You no longer start thinking that what you're doing is better than if you weren't doing this action. So you no longer begin to separate between yourself and someone else who is not as committed to you, who is not providing as much help as you, who's not giving as much as you, who's not as devoted to Allah as you. You don't see a difference between you two anymore. You begin to develop the disease of stinginess. You become very stingy with your money, your time, your energy, and your contribution. You no longer want to contribute. You become a person that doesn't want to contribute. Why? Because when you doubt in the akhirah, let's say you're in your older age, and I know I'm being generic here, not everyone suffers from the same disease, but this generally will create that sort of disease in your heart. Let's say you're 50 years old, you have a certain amount of money, and you're being asked to contribute to people. Now, if you believe in the akhirah, no problem, it's easy, because whatever I give, I know I'm getting back tenfold. But what if you think, well, I've only got 10, 20, 30 years left on this earth, and this pot of money is literally all I have, and I worked so hard for it, why should I give it to someone and get nothing back in return? You have to ask yourself, would you do all that you do if there was no reward from Allah? If no one recognized it? We're okay to get through life with no one recognizing our actions if we know Allah sees us. Even Imam al-Hussain in Karbala, he says, I can get through all of this, Ya Allah, because you're watching me. But if there was no akhirah, would Imam al-Hussain do all that he did? According to what he said, no. He only did that because Allah's watching him. He needs to be recognized by Allah. He needs someone to see it. He's going to be rewarded. And I don't mean by a palace. I mean rewarded with proximity to the source of all existence, truth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what if that wasn't there in your mind? If you didn't believe that, that will cause destruction in your soul. So that doubt begins to creep in and begins to kill you slowly. You look at those who have certainty in the akhirah, like Imam Hussain, or like the shuhada, general shuhada that we see in our own times. You see them smiling, even though they know they won't last the day. But you see bright nur in their faces because they have yaqeen in the world to come. When you have yaqeen in the world to come, you're able to push forward. You're able to develop patience and basira. But when that yaqeen is not present in your life, slowly disease begins to creep into your heart and tear you apart through doubt. So the first thing we need to recognize in ourselves is, how much do I believe in the akhirah? And if I don't, then I need to work on that. I need to identify it and work on this. What's my problem? Well, at least now you know the problem and you can begin to answer that. Doubt also creeps in other ways. Sometimes we doubt in Allah's divinity. We doubt in His uluhiyyah. So before, what I mentioned was we doubt that He's even there or in the akhirah, in the next life. This now, when you're doubting in His uluhiyyah, you're doubting that He is the only one that is worthy to be devoted to, the only one worthy of recognizing you, the only one that you should care about. When you start to care about anyone else or anything else, this is doubt in His uluhiyyah. This is doubt in His divinity. When you begin to think about trying to impress anyone or getting your reward from anyone else, then you are now slowly allowing the disease of riya to creep into your heart. Riya, the disease of showing off for egocentricity or even some sort of narcissism, because you are looking around to see who can I impress and who can I gain the heart of. You're trying to make people love you. You want to be recognized. Imam al-Hussain also wants Allah to love him. He wants Allah to recognize him, but he recognizes only Allah deserves that. Some of us, we look at other people and give them what we should only give to Allah. We want your recognition. We want your love. Love me, recognize me, reward me. Yeah, see me. Sometimes we do this through our own religion. When we want to pray, usually we might pray very fast, and then someone comes in the room and suddenly we become the big arif and we're praying and praying with them. MashaAllah, look at this brother or this sister. Because we want to be recognized, even through religion, subhanAllah. See how shaitan gets us through every little centimeter. He can even attack you through your deen. So we have the disease of riyā that can only be combated when you recognize only Allah is worthy of your devotion. Only Allah is worthy to recognize you, to reward you, to give to you. You should not be concerned with anyone else, because otherwise you are competing with Allah. You are competing with Allah for the hearts of the people. Because when you're doing that, that's God's work. The hearts of the people are supposed to go to Allah the same way your heart is supposed to go to Allah. But when you start going to seek their hearts, you're taking them towards yourself. That's God's. It's not yours. So you're saying, love me, see me, which also means don't see him, don't recognize him. I know you might think, no, I don't mean that, but think about it. If you want the heart of someone, the heart of the people, and the heart, according to our narrations, al-qalb, arshur rahman, qalb al-mu'min, the heart of the believer is the throne, the shrine of Allah. Let no one enter the shrine of Allah except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's not supposed to be a true love except God, true love. In your children, in your spouse, in your parents, you're supposed to see God, ultimately, not for their own selves. God is the source of it all. When you are trying to gain the hearts of the people, you're trying to claim godhood. So you want this recognition, you want this devotion of the people, so you are putting yourself in a place that's not yours. It's meant to be for Allah. So not only are you destroying your own self, you're putting yourself in a place where it's not yours. You're claiming divinity. Because doubt in his divinity is synonymous with you saying that you deserve the recognition. Only Allah deserves recognition. We should know that it's only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that really matters in recognizing us and rewarding us. And it is only Allah that deserves our recognition and devotion. Which means I don't deserve devotion of other people. They don't owe me. I'm not their God. That doubt that creates that egocentricity and narcissism slowly destroys you from inside and begins to destroy your heart. The tears of Imam al-Hussain and the tears for Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam, they bring that doubt out of us when we remember everything he went through in devotion to Allah, giving to Allah. We are blessed in these times, on these nights, with the knowledge that if we are to align ourselves with the certainty of Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam in Karbala, we are able to remove these doubts from our hearts and slowly come towards the revival through the blood of our martyrs. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi tayyibin at-tahirin. Sallallahu alayka ya Sayyidi, ya Mawlahi, ya Aba Abdullah. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا ابن رسول الله يا مظلوم يا غريب كربلاء يا ليتنا كنا معكم سيدي ونفوز عظيما. On the day of Ashura, the martyrs went out to fight one by one. As they all fell, and Imam al-Hussein sat by their side as they left this world. Habib left his best friend Hussein behind. Ali al-Akbar left his father behind. One by one, Imam al-Hussein lost all of his companions. The Imam stood on that battlefield alone. A young boy watched on from the tent. The son of Al-Hassan, wishing his father was there to be by Hussein's side. Al-Qasim goes up to his uncle Hussein. Uncle Hussein, let me go and fight. I wish not to see you alone. Imam al-Hussein turns towards young Qasim. My son, my beloved Qasim, you are the final remnant of my brother Hassan. You are the amana that he left behind. How can I let you go out there and fight? How can I allow the blood of my brother's son be shed? Go back to the tent of your mother, young Qasim. I do not want to see her mourn another beloved. Qasim weighs his head down and goes back to the tent. He tells his mother, Amma, Hussein won't let me go and defend him. It's at that moment, it's said that his mother gives him an amulet with a letter inside. This letter, Ya Qasim, is from your father. Open the letter and give it to your uncle Hussein. It was supposed to be given to you on a day like today. Qasim feels joy in his heart. The Ahlul Bayt always knew of a day that was coming. On his deathbed, Imam al-Hassan said to Imam al-Hussein, there is no day like yours, Ya Aba Abdullah. Qasim takes the letter towards Imam al-Hussein. He hands him the letter and the Imam immediately recognizes the handwriting. The handwriting of my brother Hassan, penned a decade ago. He reads the words, Ya Hussein, on that day when you find yourself alone, let my son, my baby infant son, on that day when he has grown, be there by your side and represent me on the battlefield. Imam al-Hussein began to cry, feeling the presence of his older brother by his side. He accepts the request from Imam al-Hassan. He kneels towards Qasim. He hugs him and embraces him. My young Qasim, go back to the tent and say goodbye one last time. Qasim is overjoyed. He goes back to the tent to say goodbye. His mother hugs him for the final time. She says, Qasim, I have one more request from you. Tell me, mother, anything. Qasim, let me hear you say that word one more time. Let me hear you call me your mother. Please say the words, Yumma, Ya Yumma. To hear you call me Mama one more time with your voice, I will never hear it again. She hugs him and tells him, when you see your grandmother Zahra, tell her that you left your mother behind in Karbala. Tell her I gave my son for her son. Qasim embraces his mother and goes back out to his uncle Hussain. Abu Fadl gives him his sword and sets him upon his horse, and Qasim rides towards the enemies. And Al-Qasim ibn al-Hassan ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib, representing Imam al-Hassan on the battlefield with the Hashimi sword. At one point, Qasim's shoe comes undone as he is thrown from the horse. He bends over to buckle his shoe, and the La'in strikes down his sword onto Qasim's head. His small body collapses to the ground. Amma ya Hussain, adrikni. Imam al-Hussain rushes out towards Qasim. He chases the killer and strikes him down. And he comes to Qasim's body lifeless on the ground. He picks up the corpse of his brother's young son, and he brings it towards the tent to be received by Abbas and Zainab, as she calls out, Wa walada, Wa qasima. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Ma'atullah ala al-zalimin ila yawm.
على قاسم بن الحسن، سلام 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 على قاسم بن الحسن.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. हाल तेरा तेरी बहनों को सुना कर कासिम, हाल तेरा तेरी बहनों को सुना कर कासिम,
روتی تھی ماں تیرے ٹکڑوں کو دکھا کر قاسم، حال تیرا تیری بہنوں کو سنا کر قاسم، حال تیرا تیری بہنوں کو سنا کر قاسم۔ کاش آ جاتا مکمل تو بھی اکبر کی طرح، کاش آ جاتا مکمل تو بھی اکبر کی طرح، تجھ کو دفناتی میں پھر دولہا بنا کر قاسم، حال تیرا تیری بہنوں کو سنا کر قاسم، حال تیرا تیری بہنوں کو سنا کر قاسم۔ کتنے گھوڑوں نے تیرے لاشے کو پامال کیا، کتنے گھوڑوں نے تیرے لاشے کو پامال کیا، کتنے چلتے تھے تیرے ٹکڑے دبا کر قاسم، حال تیرا تیری بہنوں کو سنا کر قاسم، حال تیرا تیری بہنوں کو سنا کر قاسم۔ روتے جاتے تھے حرم پیٹتے تھے سر اپنا، روتے جاتے تھے حرم پیٹتے تھے سر اپنا، شمر ہنستا رہا خیموں کو جلا کر قاسم، حال تیرا تیری بہنوں کو سنا کر قاسم۔ تازیانوں سے تماچوں سے کبھی دروں سے، تازیانوں سے تماچوں سے کبھی دروں سے، چین پاتے تھے لئی ہم کو ستا کر قاسم، حال تیرا تیری بہنوں کو سنا کر قاسم، حال تیرا تیری بہنوں کو سنا کر قاسم۔ کاش آ جائے قضا شام سے پہلے ناصر، کاش آ جائے قضا شام سے پہلے ناصر، واسطہ بابا حسن دے کے دعا کر قاسم، حال تیرا تیری بہنوں کو سنا کر قاسم، حال تیرا تیری بہنوں کو سنا کر قاسم۔ روتی تھی ماں تیرے ٹکڑوں کو دکھا کر قاسم، حال تیرا تیری بہنوں کو سنا کر قاسم۔
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء، أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء، أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا رسول الله السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى السلام عليكم يا أئمة البقي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين السلام عليك يا أبو الفضل العباس وأختك زينب وبنتك سكينة السلام عليكم يا شهداء كربلاء ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا موسى بن جعفر السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي السلام عليك يا علي بن محمد السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا مولاي وابن مولاي السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء السلطان أبا الحسن علي بن موسى الرضا كن شفيعنا وشفيع والدينا في يوم الجزاء السلام عليك السلام على أختك فاطمة المعصومة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن السلام عليك يا إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهور الأمر ورحمة الله وبركاته صلوات
هاي قاسم هاي قاسم هاي قاسم هاي قاسم
हाय कासिम हाय हाय कासिम
कदम कदम पे जो खुद को गिरा रहे हैं हुसैन हसन के लाल का लाशा उठा रहे हैं हुसैन हसन के लाल का लाशा उठा रहे हैं हुसैन
गरीब कहते हैं किसको गरीब कहते हैं किसको बता रहे हैं हुसैन
हसन के लाल का लाशा उठा रहे हैं हुसैन कदम कदम पे जो खुद को गिरा रहे हैं हुसैन हसन के लाल का लाशा उठा रहे हैं हुसैन
खुदाया देखे ना फरवा सितम का ये मंजर हजार टुकड़ों में बिखरा है गुल बदन कहकर आबा को अपनी ज़मीं पर आबा को अपनी ज़मीं पर بتا قاسم کہاں کہاں سے اٹھا